The second stop, beginning from the 22nd of June till 29th of June, we arrived in Boulder. After the journey to Hawaii, we set off for the next stop, which is the Vajradhatu Shambhala Center in Boulder, Colorado. On the afternoon of June 22nd, on that morning, actually, Khenpo Sodargye granted the empowerment of Vajradhatu, and then he went to the park and a few different places, and then we flew from Hilo International Airport to Honolulu International Airport for and 1 hour over layover, and then proceeded onto our flight to San Francisco. The time could be a little bit different. 5 hours later, it may be 5 or 6 hours or so, we arrived at San Francisco International Airport. We flew overnight and arrived at the break of dawn. It was then the 22nd of June. When we departed, it was the 21st of June. And then we took a brief break over there. According to Gyatso Rinpoche and his secretary, the secretary said that we stayed there for a little bit longer, but according to my notes, it was shorter. I remember that we had a meal there, and I think I've mentioned in one of my classes that when we were having the meal, Khenpo Rinpoche was all teared up and saying that the blessings of the three jewels is incredible and unfathomable. The great kindness from Shakyamuni Buddha, it is really because of that we are able to receive such offerings even at a foreign country. I initially wanted to write it down, but then thought maybe the Westerners wouldn't be able to accept it. And thinking that, well, we hosted him, why is it that the blessings of the Buddha? For that reason, I didn't write it down. Anyhow, after resting for a brief time, at that time, Gyatso Rinpoche, the one wearing the yellow cloth, is Gyatso Rinpoche. And then Venerable Chachu Rinpoche, Lingzhu Rinpoche, and many others. Then we went to rest at the home of one of Gyatso Rinpoche's students in Menlo Park, where we spent the night before proceeding on to Denver the next day. I think the time was about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, crossing the Continental Divide and approaching the plains to the east of Denver, arriving at the previous airport, Stapleton International, which stopped running as the airport right now. I think around 1995 it stopped running as the airport. And then our final destination of Boulder was another hour's drive from there. The city of Boulder is located at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, where they meet the Great Plain. It is beautiful and a quiet city, like a giant garden full of energy and passion. Along the way, we passed through many hills, dotted with high trees and pretty houses in the various styles. I took some photos, but when we were trying to use those photos, the pixels were not meeting the requirement, so we couldn't use it. And then we were accommodated in Marpa House at 981 12th Street near the center of Boulder. This was a residential Dharma center of Vajradhatu in Colorado at the time, and many great lamas who had come to Boulder to teach the Dharma and had stayed there. Many practitioners were also living there in order to fully engage themselves in Dharma practice. They had renounced their hometowns and careers in order to live a simple and meaningful life in the Vajradhatu Sangha community. All of this was due to the great kindness and the personal charisma of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who established Vajradharma and Vajradhatu and attracted many Americans, young and old, to the Dharma path. This was truly an amazing and influential event some 50 years ago. Vajradhatu later became well-known internationally, international organizational, and eventually included more than 100 meditation centers for several residential retreat centers in America and Europe. While in the past, I think those numbers were much larger, similar to what we had as well, isn't it? We had more centers, but now we had none. At a period of time, we had lots of people to listen to Dharma classes, and then we had lots of study centers, but now none of them is left, but this is really life. This is impermanent and how people are. Now, many of those places have different centers, different meditation centers, and considered as one of the largest Buddhist organizations in the U.S. One of the main organizations that invited His Holiness Ponsukram Rinpoche was the Shambhala Center, was Vajradhatu. So Vajradhatu provided us with great assistance in applying for visas and getting approval for traveling abroad from both the U.S. and Chinese governments. And for that, Ponsukram Rinpoche had thanked them many times, because if we were to only rely on our own power, it probably won't become, this trip probably won't become true. This time, as scheduled, Ponsukram Rinpoche would stay 6 days in Boulder and give Dharma teachings to different groups of people. So that was the 22nd. And then on the 23rd, and according to this book, is 24th, Ponsukram Rinpoche went to Karmazo Meditation Center, where a grand Dharma assembly was held, and many great masters, monastics, lay Buddhist practitioners, as well as non-Buddhists, were gathered together to receive Ponsukram Rinpoche's teachings. In the stately hall, Ponsukram Rinpoche was seated on a well-adorned throne, and the host speaker introduced him to the audience by saying, His Holiness Ponsukram Rinpoche is an unsurpassed scholar and enlightened master of great accomplishments in today's land of Tibet. While nowadays, it seems that even in the West, they would say that he's a great accomplished master, unsurpassed scholar. He has perfected the Mahayana and the Tantrayana teachings in the 4 schools of Tibetan Buddhism. He is the embodiment of all the Buddhas. Just by hearing his speech or seeing his face with pure faith, one will be able to shut the door of the 3 lower realms. Such an auspicious opportunity for us to be able to meet him in person indeed resulted from the tremendous amount of merit accumulated in our many lifetimes. And then, in accordance with the preference and capacity of the audience, then Ponsukram Rinpoche gave the following teachings. With your great compassion, you embraced this turbulent and degenerated world and made 500 mighty aspirations as exalted as the white lotus. Whoever hears your name shall never return to samsara. Most compassionate teacher, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, to you I pay homage. Starting from this verse of praise and supplication to Shakyamuni Buddha, I pay homage to my heart deity and set my altruistic motivation for giving this teaching. And then he continued to say that today I would like to share with you the essence of Buddha Dharma. The Buddhist view of the vast and pervasive compassion, which is not inconsistent with any other religious tradition in this world, such as Christianity. There are several important reasons for me to give this teaching in the West. I have established the same view in the land of snows, namely that there is no inconsistency among the four major schools and many other minor branches in Tibetan Buddhism. Indeed, Phuntsok Rinpoche promoted unity within the different major and branch schools of Buddhism in Tibet, because there used to be different ideas and some contradictory opinions and so on. But because of Phuntsok Rinpoche, such kind of union of Buddhism in the land of snows is much far surpassed that of the previous times. Certainly, all capable masters and upholders of the Buddha Dharma have the unshakable responsibility to establish and explain this key point concerning the similarities of the major traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. Personally, I have taken it even a step further. I have engaged in actual practice to bring all different schools and traditions together. As a result, now in Tibet, the upholders and masters of all different lineages enjoy a harmonious and cohesive relationship, and their followers embrace the non-sectarian understandings of the various teachings and practices that developed in Tibet. That is why all the different schools and different kinds of masters of different lineages pay great veneration to Phuntsok Rinpoche, including in our mandala over here. There are different schools represented over there. Given such a satisfactory result, I've been acknowledged for this by many great masters. Now that as I come to the West, I feel it is necessary for me to elaborate on this idea again, letting people understand that the four major religious traditions thriving on this planet, as well as many minor religions, indeed lead to the same ultimate understanding. When Phuntsok Rinpoche went to the West, he really wished that all kinds of religions would be able to harmoniously interact with one another. To be specific, every religious tradition unanimously advocates for not harming living beings and additionally benefiting sentient beings to the best of their ability. If all religious followers, such as those of the four major religious traditions, can uphold the same view and perform the same code of conduct, then the peace of the whole world, the fundamental issue that everyone cares about most, can be actualized without hindrance. And everywhere on earth will be blessed with the ease and happiness. This is no doubt that all religions share the same purpose for the benefit of the world. Now I will talk about the view from the perspective of Buddhism. Some may wonder, why does one need to actualize the teaching taught by the Buddha? The Buddha himself answered this question. Dharma practice serves the purpose of avoiding all non-virtuous and cultivating that is virtuous. This answer encompasses the essence of Buddha's teaching. Non-virtue refers to any negative thought or deed that may bring harm to oneself or others, and therefore should be fully abandoned. If not, one will cause more and more sufferings to both self and others. Virtue refers to whatever can be done to benefit self and others, either physically or mentally. As such, abandoning non-virtue and embracing virtue are the perfect conduct and a perfect thought that encompasses all key instructions in Buddhism. And then he continued to elaborate on the perfect conduct, and then later the perfect thought. Phuntsok Rinpoche didn't prepare for these classes, by the way, and we can see that his teaching is indeed really meaningful. Some of you beginners or people of different religious background or different different backgrounds in Buddhism, different schools of Buddhism and so on, you can listen to it and contemplate upon it. Perfect conduct in Buddhism can be carried out through the practice of the 6 paramitas. The first one is generosity. Generosity means to dedicate your body, possessions, and all roots of virtue accumulated in the past, present, and the future for the benefit of all sentient beings. Some may ask, well, must I give away my body, my possessions, and my virtues all at once? I'm afraid nowadays nobody in this world is capable of doing this. And because one does not have such capacity, this is all the more reasons to follow the teaching in Buddhism, in Buddhist scriptures, and cultivate a practice stage by stage. As your mental capacity becomes stronger, then you can make greater offerings to others. As it is said in Shantideva's The Way of a Bodhisattva, our guide instructs us to begin by giving lesser things such as vegetable greens. So at the beginning, we should train to offer simple, small amounts of good, and then slowly and slowly, you will be able to give away more valuable things, including clothing, belongings, and eventually, it may even be possible to donate to your spouse and children to benefit the other living beings. Such practice is essential to you. As the Buddha taught, if you hold the thought, if I give this away to the others, what will be left for me to enjoy? Such kind of self-centered thought of considering only personal benefit would lead you to be reborn in realms of hungry ghosts, and the behavior based on such thought is inferior. On the contrary, if you think that if I enjoy this first, then what is left to give as an act of generosity to express towards the others, then that kind of consideration for the benefit of a sentient being will begin to lead you to higher realms. The conduct motivated by this consideration is wholesome and one that a Dharma practitioner should perform. It is also stated in The Way of Bodhisattva. Learning about this virtuous practice and its opposite, namely non-virtue, you engage actively in the practice of generosity for the sake of peace and happiness for all sentient beings in their present and future lives, and then makes appropriate dedication prayers. If you persevere in this practice, eventually the stage of a noble being will be reached. With such a mindset, there will be no difficulty for you to give away your head or limbs in order to benefit others because you value generosity over self-cherishing. Let's stop here today.